Welcome to Gamers Overdrive Retro Mode. Kick back and relax while I blast you back in time and guide you down a pixelated, coin-operated, button-mashing memory lane paved with joysticks, consoles, and dusty old cartridges. Where good guys are always good guys, bad guys are always bad guys, and the fate of the universe lies in your hands. Time to kick it into overdrive. Retro mode. Insert coin to play.
Oh, hey there. Welcome back to Gamers Overdrive Retro Mode. I'm your host, Johnny Heilig, and if this is your first time on the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button if you like what you see. 1986. What a cool year that was. I was 4 years old. The president was Ronald Reagan. Mike Tyson had just become the youngest heavyweight boxing champion in the world. And what else was going on? Movies. A lot of cool movies came out in 1986. We had Top Gun, legendary movie, Tom Cruise. We had one of my personal favorites, The Karate Kid, Part 2, Ralph Macchio. Shout out to Ralph Macchio. And for TV, we had a lot of great TV shows. We had Cheers, one of my favorites. We also had The A-Team, one of the best shows ever. Family Ties, The Cosby Show, Dynasty, if you were into that. Music, what was on the radio in 1986? We had Madonna, Papa Don't Preach. We also had Whitney Houston's The Greatest Love of All. That was another popular song. And of course, the Bangles' Walk Like an Egyptian. Oh, so many cool things going on. Nostalgia is a powerful thing. But maybe the best thing that happened in the year 1986 was that a company by the name of Taito released an incredible game by the name of Bubble Bobble. Bubble is such a cool game, and it's one of my favorite memories from childhood is playing Bubble Bobble with my siblings at home. We had it for the NES, but it was originally an arcade game, and the game is centered on two characters. They are called Bubblin and Bobblin. They would later become known as Bub and Bob, and they would star in lots of different branch-off games and other titles. Bust-A-Move is another one that they came to star in. But it's a really simple game. It's a single board, like a single stage, and you're out to save your girlfriend or something crazy like that. And these two little dragon monster guys, they can blow bubbles, and they can trap their enemies in the bubbles, and then they crash into the bubble and pop them, and that's how they clear the level by clearing all the bad guys. And so they can actually ride on their own bubbles too. So if there's a hard to reach place to get to, you can blow a bubble and you can just ride it up to the top of the stage. Another cool thing about this game series is it has one of those infinity drops. So like where Pac-Man, if you run off the side of the screen, you come out at the other side. This also has one of those things, but it's from top to bottom. So if you drop down the pit, you actually fall down from the top. It's really fun. And graphically, I think it's beautiful. Even today, I think the pixel graphics, they're minimalist, of course, but they look beautiful. And, so it was eventually released for the NES. That's where I first played it. And it's also my sister Margaret's favorite game ever. Shout out to Margaret. It's a great game. And I have had so much fun with it over the years. And, getting back into retro gaming within the last few years, you get to see which games stand the test of time, and this is definitely one of those games that has stood the test of time. It's still really, really fun to play, and it has a couple of sequels and a couple of side story games, but I think the original is probably still the most fun. And I'm going to show you that game today in some gameplay footage, and I'm also going to show you where Bubble Bobble has evolved today. So how can you play Bubble Bobble today in a way that's graphically appealing to new players? And there's a really cool option that I'm going to show you at the end of this video. So why don't we just get right into the gameplay? Here we go. Bubble Bobble in 3, 2, 1. Alright, so here I am in the Reset Collection app. This is an amazing app. It's a great place to store all of your ROM files. It gives you beautiful box art. I've mentioned this before, but I just can't tell you how awesome it is. I can't brag about it enough. So please go to the Google Play Store and download the Reset Collection app if you are a retro games collector. So here we are. We have Bubble Bobble. This is the original arcade game. Let's give it a shot. I'm just going to start it up here. And I'm playing this in MAME, which again is the classic arcade games emulator. So Bubble Bobble from Taito, 1986. What a great year that was. You know, it wasn't all great. Of course, there were some downsides. That whole Chernobyl explosion tragedy. Yeah. So it wasn't all great. You know, nostalgia is a double-edged sword. You get the good stuff, but then when you really investigate, you also get a whole bunch of bad stuff. But I am an optimist. I choose the glass half full. So here we go. I'm going to insert my coin here. And okay, now it is the beginning of a fantastic story. Let's make a journey to the Cave of Monsters. The Cave of Monsters, that's where this story takes place. So here I am, little I don't know if I'm bubbling or bobbling. I think I'm bubbling. So I'm the green dude, and I'm shooting bubbles, and look at that. So you shoot the bubbles, and then you just kind of crash into the guys. And when you crash into them, they give you food items. And look, then the last one turns into like a maniac and chases you. So then you collect all the food items, and you can drop down. The gameplay is great. Actually, it's really solid gameplay. And look, see how iconic the graphics are. That's one of my favorite words. If you haven't noticed, I use the word iconic a lot. I love that word. But yeah, so you blast them with bubbles, and then you can actually. So let me see if I can. You can jump on your own bubbles. If I could do it, I just want to show you. Oh, I stink. But oh, look at that! I popped my own bubble. Maybe I haven't gotten that ability yet. Hang on a second. Crashing these guys. And look at that. See, if you were to join this game as player 2, then you would just pick up where that little blue boblin is over there. And let's fall down. See, when you fall down from you just fall into the hole, and then you come back on the top of the screen. I love that little effect. It's like a second chance. Not like Mario, you fall in the pit and you die. See, so the whole goal of the game is just to get these bubbles and pop them. And if you are, if your memory was of the NES game, you might think this looks a little bit different than you remember, because the NES game, of course, was pared down graphically a little bit, and I think the gameplay was slightly changed. But they had to do that because if you remember back in the arcade days, those arcade machines were ginormous beasts, and there was some pretty hefty technology in there. So to bring that home for a $90 system. That's right, the NES was $89.99 in 1986. And so that's a pretty, even back then, pretty good bargain for like, an arcade game in your home. But they did have to make some sacrifices in graphics and such. So, yeah, these guys, I don't know what, they're little wind-up toaster guys. And I don't know how Bubblin and Bobblin got in this situation where their girlfriends got kidnapped by wind-up toaster dudes. But it happens, you have to be ready for everything in life. You never know when a wind-up toaster dude is gonna kidnap your girlfriend. Now, yeah. So this is the game basically, and there are 100 levels. So if you can beat this game in the arcade, you're a legend. I cannot beat this game. There's no way. I can beat it now, of course, because it's MAME and you can just keep playing without any quarters. But if I were a kid, when I was a kid, and I had to use actual money to play these games, no, I never got very far. That's why I've always been more of a console gamer. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you now the console version of Bubble Bobble, and it's, again, if you were an NES gamer back in the day, you're gonna recognize this one. All right, so Bubble Bobble on the NES, $89.99 in 1986. In 3, 2, 1. All right, so we're back in the Reset Collection, and I'm taking a look at Bubble Bobble on the NES. So here's my NES game collection. It's massive. It's so cool. This is the coolest app ever. And here you see Bubble Bobble 2. I'm not going to get into that just because I feel like the sequels branched away a lot and just added some new mechanics that don't really impress me much. So as a Bubble Bobble purist, I want to stick to the real deal. So I'm going to play Bubble Bobble for NES. Let's boot it up here. And take a look at that. That's some nice. Now look at this, 1988. So it took a couple of years for this to come home. And remember, they have to make some compromises here and there, graphically. So of course, I'm going to play one player. Now, see, same little message there. Make a journey to the Cave of Monsters. Now, I don't know why, but when I shot bubbles in the arcade version, I couldn't float on them, and I'm trying to remember how you do it. Is there some kind of secret to floating on the bubbles? Do you have to have a dude in the bubble? I don't think so. No. Get your cucumbers and your green pepper there. So you see, the levels are a lot simpler. You know, they took a lot of the 3D effect out of the backgrounds, and what little 3D effect there was, they took it out. But it still runs just as good. You know, this is just as fun of a game. The gameplay is still very tight. That's a word you don't hear a lot anymore, is gameplay. I miss talking about gameplay. Gameplay is the good stuff. I feel like new reviewers are just video game reviewers I'm talking about. They just take themselves either way too seriously or way too casually. And I'm hoping that I can be that middle point dude. But yeah, like these games back in the day, obviously they weren't trying to convince you that this is a real dragon. And hey, those bubbles look like I might be able to float on them. But I think they were just trying to give you a fun time, and you know, they had to give you nice tight gameplay, what we called gameplay, which is just how the game plays. And this is exactly what they give you here. It's really fun, and you know, when you jump, the guy jumps. That's what it should be. You know, there are it's very difficult to develop a video game, and it's not as easy as you might think to make a little dinosaur jump in a way that feels good. So Taito, the developer, did a very good job with this game. And you see, he can float. He can actually turn while he's floating. Yeah, I don't know what the mystery is with the jumping on the balloons. I know that you can float on these bubbles. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But that is Bubble Bobble for the NES. Now, if you are looking for something with a little more modern flair, a little more sheen, a nice polish of modern, cool graphics, then I'm going to show you what Bubble Bobble looks like today. Looks similar in a lot of ways, but very different in others. So let's take a look at it. Ready? And 3, 2, 1. Alright everybody, so what you're looking at now is Bubble Bobble in the modern era. This is Bubble Bobble for Friends for the Nintendo Switch. It's available now for $40 on the Nintendo eShop, which I think is a little bit pricey. I'm holding off until it goes on sale. But this is what Bubble Bobble looks like today. And as you see, it's the same mechanics, you know, it's just really, really beautiful, polished, shiny graphics. And of course, there are new features like these disappearing platforms, and you can play with friends. You know, it's an online game. You can also play the single player. But it's the same concept, and you see they just kept that retro vibe going, and it looks like it takes place in a little kid's room. Like that's like the backdrop. So it's, you know, it's cool. It's not, you know, if you're a retro fan and you're just like really, really into pixel art, this is not for you. But if you're just like an enthusiast of video games in general, then I would say definitely give this a shot. By the way, I'm embarrassed to admit that I had to Google how to float on a bubble in Bubble Bobble. You see he's doing it there in the video. But I had to Google it, and this is what Google says. They say, Bubble Bobble, how to jump on bubbles. To speed up this process, or to cope with bubbles that don't ascend, as is the case on some levels, stand facing a wall with about half a bubble's width between you and the wall. Jump in the air, and as you are rising upwards, blow a bubble. The bubble should appear directly beneath you, where you can then jump on it. Do I have time for all of that? Crazy. No wonder I couldn't figure it out. You have to be a rocket scientist to figure out how to float on a bubble in Bubble Bobble. Unbelievable. Anyway, thank you, Google. And yeah, sorry that I didn't know that off the top of my head. But this is a great game. I think Bubble Bobble is one of my one of my favorite memories of just gaming as a kid, which is now retro gaming. At the time, it wasn't retro, obviously. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I know my brother loves this game. My sisters love the game, and you know, it always was featured in the house when I was a kid and talked about, and it's still talked about today by me. So I have a new rating system that I'm introducing in this episode. It's a throwback to the GamePro magazine rating system, which I always loved. It kept it nice and simple. It didn't take itself too seriously like these reviewers. All these reviewers today want to be Siskel and Ebert, if you know who that is. It's another 80s reference. But you know, it's really, sometimes game reviews don't need to be that deep. I know that as games progress in terms of technology and the art aspect of them, they get deeper, and of course then you can make commentary on the philosophical implications of this game and that game. But it does, for me, I just want to know, is the game good or not? Is it fun or is it not fun? Do the graphics look good or do they look like garbage? You know, that's what I want to know. So my new review system is right here on screen, and I am going to give this game, and I'm talking about, not this game, I'm talking about Bubble, the original Bubble by Taito, both the arcade and the NES version. I'm going to give it a rating of Overdrive. Yeah, Overdrive. That means it's really good, and you should play it. So I highly recommend downloading Bubble in any way that you can. Make sure that if you are a game collector, if you are a retro ROM collector, make sure that you check out the Reset Collection on the Play Store. And thank you very much, guys. If you like this video, don't forget to hit like. And if you want to see more retro content like this, please subscribe. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you next time on Gamers Overdrive Retro Mode.